Good morning, Packer fans, and welcome to the third edition of the Pack Attack Cast, brought to you from fans for fans. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about some news and notes going into the NFL draft and how that's going to impact the draft for your Green Bay Packers. Please like and subscribe this video. It really helps the channel as we're working to get discovered as a brand new entity in the Packers sphere. So let's talk about some Packers news that's gonna have some significant impact in the upcoming draft. Latest news we have from multiple sources is the Green Bay Packers will hold on to Jaire Alexander until they can get a trade of sufficient value. This is a very critical point here going into the NFL draft, as it might change the priority the Packers put into drafting a cornerback. I've theorized for a while now that there is a small possibility. Originally, I thought it was 5 to 10%. Now, with this report, I think it might be as high as 25 to 30% that Jaire Alexander stays with the Green Bay Packers. In effect, he can't be traded unless he wants to be traded because of his current contract, which makes it very hard for most NFL teams that want to trade for him to fit him into their plans for their salary cap. So unless he's willing to renegotiate, and we've heard multiple times that he isn't, Jaire really has control over his destiny as far as whether he's going to be traded or not. What are the chances that he stays? I still think it's around 25 to 30%. Now, an important thing to watch with Jaire is the fact that the Packers offseason starts on Monday. Players are to report to Lambeau on Monday for the start of the offseason program. Will Jaire be invited? Will he stay away? Will he come in and act as if business is normal? Or will there be drama? There's a lot of potential here. I actually expect Jaire to show up. Number one, he gets a significant bonus if he does show up. Number two, it is in Jaire's best interest, if he does want to be traded, to come to Green Bay, show himself to be a good teammate without drama for his potential future trade partners for the Packers. So if he doesn't show up, if he shows up and causes drama, that only reduces his value, which makes it harder for him to get traded away or for him to get released, because releasing apparently is not in the cards here. So I do expect Jaire to show up on Monday. I expect him to be on his best behavior, and possibly Jaire and the Packers organization can get into a room and maybe work something out, either to facilitate a trade or to keep him on the team. And if he stays on the team, it is a significant impact for the Packers draft decisions. I think they would still take a corner, but they might look at taking a corner much later if they have a positive discussion with Jaire on Monday. So it's really critical that Jaire comes into the building so the Packers understand where they stand with Jaire, whether a trade is possible or whether they have to try to work something out for at least this year with Jaire. If Jaire does stay with the team, it makes it very interesting because you're going to have Jaire starting as long as he's healthy. You're going to have Keyshawn Nixon on the other outside boundary. And we can have Nate Hobbs actually slide into the nickel corner spot, which is his strongest position. So theoretically, if the Packers work something out, now I still think it's 25 to 30% chance, but if they do, that would significantly strengthen the Packers defense, because they're right now what we consider their number two corner, which would be Hobbs, would move into the nickel or slot position, which would be a definitely a significant improvement, assuming Jaire stays healthy, of course. Now let's look at some rookies that have recently visited the Packers in pre-draft that could be in play for the Packers this year. We have McMillan from Arizona, the wide receiver. He came in. Matthew Golden came in. Emeka Ibuka of Ohio State came in. Isaiah Bond came in, but that was before it was revealed that he had some significant concerns with an assault charge with the police. As a result of that, I think Isaiah Bond probably comes off the Packers draft board, unless it's much later in the draft. I would say 5th or 6th round or later. Originally, he was looking at being a low 2nd, early 3rd, but he's probably dropping down to the end of the draft. So that's very concerning. Looking at offensive linemen that have come in. Now, the Packers still have a strong need for some depth in the offensive line because we have several offensive linemen that are going to be free agents next year. Now, some of them are going to be signed, no doubt about it. Zach Tom for sure is going to be re-signed. We also have Walker, who's going to be a free agent. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. We have Josh Simmons from Ohio State. We have Anthony Belton of North Carolina State. John Williams of Cincinnati. Now, a lot of these, except for Josh Simmons, are for the later part of the draft. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to look at a offensive lineman that they didn't bring in. However, the Packers really tend to put an emphasis on players that they've had in the building. So the fact that Josh Simmons came in is a pretty interesting fact right there. For defensive tackles, we have Walter Nolan, who's come in, and TJ Sanders, which is a very common target for the Packers in the 2nd round in a lot of mock drafts. Walter Nolan would definitely be a 1st-round pick. And those are some significant people that they brought into the building. Edge rusher, which is arguably their number one priority for the 1st round. We have Shamar Stewart, who came in. Very, very controversial target here, Shamar Stewart. Some people love him because of his potential. Some people say we're sick of drafting potential. Give us somebody that has production. He's a very divisive target. Michael Williams was also in from Georgia. James Pierce, which on paper looks like a great target. However, his production is kind of questionable because they really maneuvered to make James Pierce put him in the optimal position every single opportunity on the field. So his numbers are a little deceiving. Looking at cornerbacks, we have Siobhan Revelle from East Carolina who came in. He would be a surprise for me because he is a great player, but he's going to be 24 years old by the start of the season. And that's definitely an older player, and the Packers like to draft younger, especially high in the draft. Trey Amos of Ole Miss came in, also for cornerbacks. So that's also a corner that you could look at in the 1st or 2nd round, depending on how they fall. Next thing we want to look at is we have John Fitzpatrick, tight end, was re-signed, probably for the NFL minimum, by the Packers this past week. What this probably means to me is they want to get more out of Musgrave, which is why they're getting Fitzpatrick in to be that blocking feature in the offense. So he's not going to be a major part of the offense other than his blocking, but it is important to note that they did bring him back into the field. So that's just another part of the Packers roster that is making it back into the lineup. Now, I want to take all this information that we just went through and look at how that could impact the draft. So let's take a look at that right now. So one second. User error. User error here. Let's get the mock draft simulator up. 1 second. Still a work in progress here, everybody. All right. Somehow that switched screens on me. All right. Let's get back into it. Hey, we're doing this stuff live. So these things happen. So let's take a look at the NFL draft here. We've got a situation here where the Packers, as we know, are drafting 23rd. So I'm using the PFF mock draft simulator. We're looking at a 7-round mock draft. I've adjusted the settings, as you can see right here. A lot of people don't show these settings, but I think they're very important. I've reduced randomness to try to give you as non-random, linear prediction for what the Packers are going to do. So let's take a look at what the Packers could do here. Let's enter the draft. And we'll start the draft here. Okay. So let's take a quick look. So we have Abdul Carter going first, which is kind of a surprise. Travis Hunter going second. Cam Ward going third. Austin Gentry going to the Patriots. Now this is simulated, so you're not going to have any trades here. But what it does is give us a feel for what is available for the Packers. So let's look at some players the Packers would target. Mason Graham went 5th. He's off the board. Jahdae Barron went 6th. He's off the board. McMillan went off the board at number 8. These are all players that I think the Packers would target. Mike Green went 12th to the Cowboys. Bit of a surprise there. Will Johnson went 13th. Golden went 15th. Izaraku went 16th. Walter Nolan went 17th. So you're seeing a lot of defensive players get off the board early here. Kenneth Grant, 18th. Emeka Ibuka, went 20th to the Broncos. As somebody who lives in the Denver area, that would be very exciting for them. Shadir Sanders all the way to the Steelers, which would be a very interesting pick here. And then we have Josh Simmons, who came in for a meeting with the Packers, went at 22. So it is possible he would be here. So there is a reason that he came in into the building, so to speak. So let's look at what we have on the board right now. We've got Luther Burden. I don't think he's a fit for the Packers because the Packers really value wide receivers that will block for the running game, and Luther Burden is not a good blocker, so he is not on the board for me. We have James Pierce here. He is an end, but again, I don't really think he fits what the Packers are looking for here. We've got Gray Zabel, who would be a great tackle. However, I don't think the Packers are going to go for a tackle in the first round. We have Trey Amos here, as discussed. We have Shamir Stewart all the way down to number 33. Benjamin Morrison. So there, Derek Harmon all the way down. He's now ranked number 42. He's really been falling down a lot of draft boards. We also have Maxwell Hairston, which has been rumored as a target for the Packers as well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go with Shamar Stewart. I think this is about where he's going to be drafted. I think the Packers have significant interest in him. He fits the Packer picks true and true as far as a potential player with a lot of potential. So we're going to go Shamar Stewart here in the first round. Very likely pick for the Packers. If he gets down there, I think Shamar Stewart is the pick for the Packers. All right, so we get to the second round here. Let's see what we have on the board. We've got safety. We have Cam Skattebo, which is a very popular target. Not for us. We've got no problems in our running back room. So where would be a good target for us? So actually farther down, there's Jalen Royals. There's Jared Ivey, but we just picked an end, so we're not going to pick up another end. Darian Porter at 64. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to see if we can find a trade here. We're doing this live. We're trying to find some trades where we can get some value and still get a player that we really would be interested in. Let's actually look at the Texans here. We would give up 54, get 58. And I don't think we're getting enough value from the Texans. So we could look at the Ravens. Ravens might be interesting here. Give up 54. Pick up 59. If we give up, we get 91 and give up 124. I think that's a very reasonable trade right here. And I think that's equivalent value. We get a little bit more juice for moving down in the draft later rounds. So let's actually take that pick because we're going to get another pick within the top 100. So we're going to take that trade. It takes us down to 59. Let's look at who's on the board right here. I actually like Darian Porter right here. I think it would be a nice value. Let's take a look at Darian Porter. 6'4", 200. He is older, so that is an interesting situation here. I know I've talked about older players before, but I think right now, in the second round, I think it makes sense for them to take Darian Porter here. So we're going to take Darian Porter. And we go down to 87. And let's take a look at our picks so far. We've picked up Shamar Stewart as an edge, Darian Porter as a corner. So we've addressed two of our largest needs in the draft in this mock. All right, so let's look at some potential options here. We've got Kyle Williams as a wide receiver. That's a very interesting option here, but he's going to go much later in the draft, even though he's ranked number 65. Right now, he's projected to go outside of the 100, so we don't have to take this player here. But one player I do like is Jonah Salavea, and I'm sure I'm butchering that name, but we definitely need some tackle depth. So this is a player that I have been getting consistently in the third round, and it would not surprise me if the Packers took a tackle in the second or the third round. So let's take Salavea here. All right, so we've addressed edge, corner, and tackle. One player that's definitely sitting out here is Oladipo. I'm definitely butchering that name. Sorry about that. One of the trickier names in the draft this year. So let's take a look at him. 6'3", 250. He has positional versatility. and he would be a great edge defender. Now, we've already addressed the edge. Do we double down on the edge? It would not surprise me if we did that. But I really am interested in seeing what else we have further on down the board, and we might look at a trade. Now, I like Galette here, Austin Galette. He's got a lot of potential, a lot of upside. Jordan Birch is also down here. We also have some corners that are further down that might be a good fit for us. So can we get some good trade value by actually trading down here? I think that would be the smart thing to do. So let's look at some trade options. We've got the Saints. Okay, we've got the Saints. We've got the Cleveland Browns. Let's take a look at the Cleveland Browns and see if we can get some juice out of a trade down here. So we're going to look at giving up 91 to go down to 94. I kind of like making that trade and maybe trying to get, no, that won't work. All right, so let's do, we'll give up 91, take 94, and we'll pick up 179 further down in the draft. Okay. Okay, that gets us further down. I do like Charles Grant here a lot. And this is about where he's going to be drafted. He's with William and Mary, 6'4", 323. Grant's athleticism gives him a ton of raw potential. His lower body is his true asset, and he could develop into a solid contributor if he adds upper body strength. I actually like Charles Grant here. We're going to take Charles Grant, another tackle. Again, tackle is a very hidden need in our draft. Now, notice we haven't taken a wide receiver yet. The value just hasn't flown down to us right now. And that's just the way it's going to be. Sometimes in the NFL draft, you don't want to rush a pick. There's always the opportunity after the draft for us to trade for a player that fits our needs. The wide receiver draft class is below average this year. So I really don't want to reach for a wide receiver just to get a wide receiver. So we're looking for significant value here. So let's look at our picks so far. We've got edge, we've got corner, and we've got two very good tackles so far. So I'm very excited about how this is going right now. Now, I'd love to get either a wide receiver or some interior defensive line, but we're not seeing a lot of value here as far as where a player could be picked up. So we can look at a significant trade down again. Again, I'm trying to get the most value out of these picks. So we're trying to maximize value, try to get a good, so who can we trade for further down and still get a player that we're looking for? Could we look at trading with the Texans? Okay. We could get some value there, an extra pick later on, but I don't think that's quite enough juice. What if we look at the Buffalo Bills? We're going to go down 10. From 159 to 169. We're going to try to add 70. And can we trade back a 198? Yeah, it's not going to be enough. What if we add on 250? Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to trade down from 159 to 169, so down 10. We're going to pick up 170 and give up 198 and 250. I like that trade, and we have lots of picks to play with here right now. So let's do that. All right, that gives us 2 picks in a row right here at 169. So, still not seeing... I do like Ty Robinson from Nebraska. Let's take a look at Ty Robinson. 6'6", 310. He has a 79.5 pass rushing grade. He's an elite athlete for the position who plays with a bully's mentality. He does have below average length and needs to play with better leverage, but he has the traits and motor to be a projected backup with upside to one day becoming a starter. I think this is a good fit for the Green Bay Packers right here. All right. Now this is going to be an interesting pick right here. I like Kyle McCord of Syracuse here in the 5th round. And the reason for that is we need some depth at the quarterback position. Our number 2 quarterback is probably going to be a free agent and gone next year, unless we can get an extension out of him, which is unlikely because he probably wants to start. So I do like Kyle McCord here as a number 3 developmental quarterback. So let's add him to the roster. All right. We've got another defensive lineman here, which we could grab. Nothing wrong with that. We're definitely working on the trenches here in this draft. So let's take a look at Cameron Jackson here. See if he fits as a Packer. Run defense grade, really high for this late in the draft. Pass rush grade, not that great. But again, we're talking about the later rounds of the draft. Very consistent production here. Very consistent grades. 6'6", 342. He's a massive 6'6", 328 frame. Is designed to clog the A gap and free up linebackers to make tackles. Now this is key here because we have 2 of the best young linebackers in the league right now. So I really love adding him this late in the draft. So let's grab him. All right, we're down to Mr. Irrelevant for this draft. Pick 237. Let's see what we could find for some value here. I actually like Isaiah Frazier and Jalen Davis right here in this part of the draft. Let's look at Isaiah Frazier because I think he is a sneaky, great late round pick. So let's take a look at it. 6'3", 185. So he's about 5 pounds less than the Packer ideal, but we're drafting late in the range. But Frazier's build and athleticism give him an intriguing ceiling as a day 3 bet to make. Though his game lacks refinement, his lone year as a full starter, he did earn an 82.5 coverage grade thanks to a 19.5 forced incompletion rate. So this is a great late round pick to throw into that corner room. He can probably be a special teamer right off the gate, but he has the potential to be a very nice depth and developmental piece late in the draft. So let's go ahead and grab him. All right. That will complete our draft. Let's see how we did here. All right. So we got Shamar Stewart in the first round. That's an A- grade. I think that is a very accurate grade for him. Second round, we traded down, and we still got a potential starting corner in Darian Porter. I think that's a great pickup. Now, Jonas Alvea, he's got a C+ rating here, but that's because the rating system is looking at the impact of the player in 2025 and our draft needs for 2025. I feel that Salavea and Charles Grant here are going to be great values next year when we need to look at shuffling up the offensive line. So I'm very happy with those picks, especially since we traded down to get Charles Grant. We added a solid interior defensive lineman in Ty Robinson and a prospect at quarterback in Kyle McCord, which could be a really good long-term investment in the 5th round. Now, we did trade out of the 4th completely, but we got 2 third-round picks, so I'm very happy with how this draft shaped up. We then add Cameron Jackson, which is a great run stuffer in the middle, with an A rating in the 6th round. And Za Frazier, as our Mr. Irrelevant, legitimately has a chance to start in the future. Not necessarily in 2025, but he has some interesting potential. So our draft grade was a B+. I think that it really is like an A- or an A if we factor in the value of these 2 tackles in 2026, which is really what I drafted them for. So I'm very happy with this. So we went into the draft with 7 picks, and we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 picks out of the draft. So I think we significantly squeezed as much value as we could out of this draft. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Pack Attack Cast. Thanks for stopping by. Once again, like and subscribe, and we'll see you with another episode very soon. Talk to you then. Go Pack Go.